What's up? What's up? Hi, everyone. Today, I want to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart and something that took me a really long time to understand. And it is why you need a brand strategy before you jump into design and jump into development of a website or anything, really. Before you create anything, you need a brand strategy. And to talk about that a little bit, it's something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about because a brand strategy is something that is not overt, like a design is, like the visual side of your brand, or like a website is. But it is something that I have seen time and time again. Folks who go straight to a graphic designer to create a logo for them, or straight to a web developer to create a really gorgeous, amazing website for them, and then it falls flat, and not because of anything that the designer or the developer did, but because they didn't know what they were asking for, because they didn't have a brand strategy. And there are some web designers and some web developers and some graphic designers, brand designers that offer strategy, but not everyone knows that that's what they're supposed to be looking for. Oftentimes, folks just see a successful business and you see what they look like. You see their logo, you see their incredible marketing materials, you see their super nice website, and you think, oh, that's what I need, which is something that, of course, yes, you do need that. But there are so many steps before you get there. And so that's what I want to talk a little bit about, because I think that quite often web developers, web designers, brand designers, graphic designers sometimes get the short end of the stick because, folks will come to them and ask for something and they get something and they end up being disappointed, and it's because they didn't know how to voice what they were asking for. Those designers and developers are doing their job the best of their ability, but if there's no strategy, it's not going, what you want in your brand, it's not going to come through on the other side of the design. And that is no one's fault. It's just the fact that not everyone knows that there's this huge step that comes before the design. And so that's what I want to talk about today and why it's so important. So whenever I work with anyone on the strategy of their business, whether that is through brand coaching, through a one-on-one strategy clarity session, or whether it is going through and doing the whole brand strategy for them, we start off first with talking about who their audience is. And it always surprises me how folks don't always think about this first. They think about what their own personal preferences are. And if they are their ideal audience, that can work out just fine. But it's quite rare that who you are is also exactly who you're targeting. Might be someone similar to you, but it's usually not that exact person. So for example, if someone was creating a brand and I was the core audience, I am going to be looking for something and be impressed by something that is quite different than anyone else, pretty much than you or me. And so if I am someone who is creating a brand for, women 5 years younger than me, what they're looking for is going to be different than what I'm looking for. And quite often that's who we're creating our brand for, is someone who's perhaps a little bit younger than you or has a little less experience than you. And we're creating a brand for a purpose of something that we didn't see at that time. So first we start creating your audience. From there, then we really start from there creating your values and how that crosses over with your audience, and your mission, which is kind of a combination of your values and your audience, and also what your services are. Of course, your services can change from time to time, or they might get a little more specific. And so we don't necessarily put specific services in your mission statement. But, for example, if you are a personal trainer who works with women in their 20s, I'm just making this up, but personal trainer works with women in their 20s, women who want to get fit, they've never been to a gym before, and they also value someone who's very kind, they're going to kind of hold your hand. So whatever personal trainer works with young women just starting out, looking for a kind helping hand, and we do X, Y, and Z type of personal training. The mission statement can look something like that. And then from there, you're going to create your voice, right? And what your voice is really how you're going to message to these people, how those folks want to be talked to. And that's going to include your content strategy and where that person is going to be. So if I'm a personal trainer working with women in their 20s, they most likely are probably going to be pretty technologically savvy and are probably going to be spending a decent amount of time on social media. It's always possible that they're not, but just as a large swath and a generalization here. So I should probably be spending a lot of time on social media strategy, and that strategy would be a lot different if I was working with 60-year-old women or 40-year-old women. And so that's something to start thinking about. I'm also going to talk to them in a much different way. It's probably going to be a little more casual than if I was talking to older women, probably a little more meme-ified or a little more casual in that sense of the word. It's just going to be a different way that I'm going to be talking to them than I'd be talking to anyone else. And these are all things that you create before you even start thinking about design. So your design isn't for you, it's for your audience. And so once you've created all of these strategic elements of knowing who your audience is, knowing what your mission is, your values, your services, and then how you're going to talk to your audience, that's when you start creating design. And your design is informed by all of that strategy that you've already laid out. You want your audience to look at your design and immediately be drawn in, because quite often we're drawn in by design, and then it's the copy and the messaging that really hammers the message home. So if you go to a designer or a developer and want to start creating these things first, you're probably going to be designing for yourself and not for your audience. And that's the reason it doesn't work, and it quite often falls flat. And you can't get upset at a web designer or a web developer for that, a web designer, a web developer, or a brand designer, because they don't necessarily know who your audience is. That needs to be dug into first before you even start thinking about design. And so if that's something that you're considering, I would really, really encourage you to look for a designer or a developer who has experience with at least some basic brand strategy, or for you to work with a brand strategist or a coach or someone like me first to really start uncovering these things before you even start thinking about design. So those are some reasons why you should really consider working with a strategist and figuring out some of these things before you dive into the design development, because your strategy informs all of the visual portions of your brand. And so I really hope that you think about doing that before diving into your gorgeous, amazing website and brand that is going to be fantastic, but it's going to be even more fantastic if you take the time to strategize a little bit first.